Hi guys, come and join us. We've got some paintings in here. We've got the beers out. We've got some whale skulls. Come and have a look. Okay, so I'm going to start with a round of names. Really, we've got over here.
Hi guys, I'm Ellen. Sorry.
Keep going. Keep going.
I'm a PhD student here at the museum, and I am studying climate change and the effects on whales, dolphins, and porpoises.
Okay, so you've got a lot there. You've got dolphins, you've got climate change, you've got porpoises. We've got a mysterious figure coming towards us who's excited to come in. Two mysterious figures. They might come and join us. We've got Ellen over here. She's doing a PhD on climate change in Wales. Over here we have...
What's the porpoise of that? So I'm sure you've heard that before.
Over here we have terrible jokes. Save us.
Gotta get it in. I'm Mikey. Come and have a seat. Come and get involved in this. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. But you're not going to get a beer because they're £6 each. And I'm just like, yeah, I know. Yeah.
You can ask something. First of all, you have to introduce your name.
Oh, hey, I'm Margot.
Hello. And are you happy to say your name on air?
Why not? Abby?
Abby. Welcome, Abby. So this is Talkaoke. It's a table of chat. We've got some whales. We've got something about beer that we were going to talk to, and about expensive beer.
Expensive beer is one of the issues that I have in life right now. But my second issue is, like, you study climate change. How's your mental health? Because I've noticed that there's a lot of like anxiety going on about the climate change. It's like, oh hey, beer is expensive. Fuck, we're gonna die sooner than we had hoped. So I kind of wonder, how are you with that?
Thank you for asking. I totally get what you mean though. There seems to be this kind of compassion fatigue when it comes to climate change, and especially when it's something you really, really care about, which I like to think I do, doing a 4-year PhD on it. And yeah, it can get a little bit depressing after a while. A lot of the stuff I'm looking at is like negative impacts of climate. There aren't very many positive stories when it comes to climate. So yeah, it can get a little bit overwhelming. How do I cope with it? I guess being at the museum is really cool because we have like the historical stuff as well. So one of the main things I'm doing is looking at how climate change affects things in the past, because that's one of the things climate deniers say to me is like, oh, climate change happened in the past. How's this any different to now? And they are right. It did happen in the past. It happened like up to 18 degrees of warming in the past. But the main thing is that it's obviously very rapid now. But one of the things that keeps me going is like having this huge amount of data that we can look at, and the more we know about what's happening to animals now, the better we can help them in the future. And we can start to look at conservation and conserving and helping, whales in my case, like with marine protected areas and things like that. And so that's the kind of silver lining, I guess, that kind of keeps me going on the depressing days looking at climate change.
So your work can sometimes be a bit depressing, but the answer is kind of maybe more work? Maybe? Is that also the consolation?
But I think people care more about whales than they do about individuals in isolated community, in like island communities, I should say. So it's better to say, the whales... I'm going to just turn this down a little.
Oh yeah, it's a bit dramatic at the moment.
The whales are dying is probably more compelling to people than people getting flooded out of their communities.
I think it's sometimes easier to kind of, exercise your empathy on something that's maybe, less difficult to focus on. Like, for instance, people who can be like terrible people to live with, they've got pets and they look after those pets really well. And I think maybe it's a kind of like a coping mechanism, because one thing that I've heard recently was, of course, there are people who go through a depression and things like that, but there are some people who supposedly have got nothing really bad going on in their life. They're leading these like, really good, successful lives, you may say, but they find it hard to cope with the world. And I think the point about that was that some people have lower resilience, rather. So maybe that's why it's easier to care about dolphins, because caring for another human being is just you know, there's so much they have to like think about. How do you say to a child that's having panic attack about climate change it's going to be fine? It's probably not going to be that fine. Something's going to happen, you know. I mean, I don't know what you think, but like, you know, that's probably why people have pets, you know.
Yeah, so it's actually easier to care for animals than it is for humans. So it's too difficult, it's too heavy. Do we agree, do we disagree? Do you think you care about animals more than humans? Or are you looking for the exit? Because that's also, I think we've had a few people like that as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they're a bit lost.
It's so like crazy
Oh, hello.
to maneuver around this place. I just got instantaneously lost. I went to the dinosaurs and I was just like, wow, timetravel.com.
Here for 4 years and that still happens. But yeah, like going on from what you're saying about like humans versus animals, I think with the human thing, it can feel so overwhelming because like there are a lot of us and there are a lot of problems and it's all very close to home. When it comes to like the animal thing, there's like a little bit of disconnect, I think, and it's a little bit easier to kind of find. It's like easier to talk about. It's much easier to talk about the effects of climate change on whales than it is from like poorer people living in Bangladesh, for example, because it's just not it's not as like close to home. So yeah, I would agree. I think it's an interesting point.
Is this something that we think needs to be solved, or is this just something we think like it's always going to be the way it is? Oh, what are you eating over here, Martin?
do you have some?
I'm quite curious about what they are.
They're quinoa, eco-friendly,
Oh.
yeah. Quinoa
Yeah.
chips.
Are quinoa chips eco-friendly?
I've got this. I'm making all the right noises. But in my mind, I remember when I was a teenager, like back in the Stone Age, and we already knew about climate change. We called it. Yeah, there's a whole thing. There's all of my brothers and sisters are all skeletons on the. Anyway, the point is that we were talking about climate change back then. We called it global warming back then, but that was in the 1980s, and I really feel that we've done a lot of destruction. I'm not saying that's it, so give up, party till it's over, but we've just done. It's just so frustrating to see the damage that's already caused. And do we really know kind of, you know, how long it takes for these effects to accumulate? So the damage we're doing now, is it going to be actually manifesting in 50 years' time?
So what do we think? We should have been caring about it earlier. It's going to be even worse in 50 years' time. Should we care?
It's hard to know. It's hard to know, and on the animals side of thing, it's a lot easier to care about the animals because they can't necessarily defend themselves, whereas we actually have the opportunity to be able to do something about it. So,
Okay, yeah.
And I think it's easier to explain to your pet, to guinea pig, that it's going to be fine. It probably won't even understand what you're saying than to a human being. Because, I mean, working through, like, difficult subjects is just, like, I don't know if it's ever possible to do it successfully. Like, I mean, no, of course it is, but, yeah, it's a tough one. And I think as people, we just get a bit overwhelmed. But, yeah. Like, for instance, when I was growing up, like, everybody was, like, worrying about the fridges and the whatever the... I was like, yeah, don't use the fridge. It's like, how am I gonna...
Yeah, why? Is this solved?
That's I think that's quite like a positive story because the ozone hole is closing up because there have been like legislation on CFCs and putting them in refrigerators, and I was taught about that at school as well, and I was like, oh my god, we're all going to die. Yes, yeah, don't use hairspray. Can never go to Australia because I'll burn to death. But it is a bit of like a hope story because like, it's not as big an issue, or maybe that's because there are bigger issues now and like CFCs aren't even a problem. I'm not sure. I think hopefully it's the more positive version.
So do we think we have enough hope stories in the media? Like, do we maybe need more? Or do you think, yeah, why?
why? Because people need more motivation to do it. And, well, yeah, doing sad stories isn't always the way to get people involved, so...
So sort of fear around climate.
I agree with you. I think we need a bit more kind of inspiration to do positive things, and it's quite funny. As you were talking, my eyes landed on inspiring, the writing just over there. Oh, there's some people over there. But what I was going to say is that I feel really disappointed in myself sometimes when, despite the fact that I do want to be hearing positive news, I'm terrible for clickbait. I was just how did this housewife get rid of all these like pounds on her? I want to know this. It's like, how did this child actor grow up? How would they look like now? I want to know.
Can we make climate change clickbaity? Ooh.
I think so. But it's interesting because on that point, like obviously it's really nice to see like inspirational stories to be like, yeah, this is what we can do. But I know Blue Planet were criticised for making things look too good. And like actually in some of those shots there was like stuff off shot that they left out, like a pile of rubbish or something, and instead focused on like obviously the cool albatross or whatever. So now they've turned it round, and obviously in kind of later stuff like Blue Planet 2, it became more about the negative. So it's interesting because they had to think about that question: are we making this look too good, or is that good because it's like hopeful?
I've got a point over here about, does Blue Planet look too good? I don't know if you've got some time, lady, to come and sit down with us. No, she's too busy.
The issue is when all of these programs first came out, so the original Blue Planet and that probably for you guys as well, that inspired our whole generation to do what we do. So even though, they have to look glossy because it's on TV, but I've always remembered they do the little 10 minutes at the end of how the actual film crews deal with it and the real situation as well. So I'd never diss what they're doing.
Don't hate on Blue Planet.
But but I think that's the thing. There's like the created reality, good or bad, and then there's the actual kind of like ups and downs of like things coming, kind of being born or kind of occurring. And I think, and sometimes I'm just a little bit suspicious about the stuff that's being said about climate change or anything really, because it may be just a version of what reality is. It probably always is as well. So it's quite hard to know what to believe in. We don't get to see, like in real life sometimes, maybe in some situations it's hard to see the behind the scene things, the kind of, I don't know what the point is that I'm trying to make, but sometimes I think it's just quite hard to penetrate this is how we want this particular piece of news or this fact to be represented, but no one knows what the truth is. And I find that just a bit hard to navigate somehow.
So we're kind of losing our way of knowing what the truth is. Hi guys, do you want to come and talk to us about Blue Planet at all? Have you guys seen Blue Planet?
Goodbye.
No, we're just going to wave them off. I hope you had a good day at the Naturalist Museum. It is probably the second best museum in South Kent.
It's different. Sometimes it's different aspects of the same reality. Like today, there was an article in the news about the Drax power station, which I think is near Leeds, closing down. And instead of talking about it being about this is great news for reducing our carbon emissions, the story was 250 people were losing their jobs, which is kind of sad. But it's the same story, but probably from a headline writer's point of view, a bad news story is actually better than a good news story. More people will probably read it if you concentrate on the bad news side of it.
Okay, we think more people read bad news. That's why we have them out there.
But you touched on an interesting thing, which is there are some massive things like death or climate change or whatever, which are impersonal and incomprehensible in a way. But the minute we focus on people are losing jobs, and what are you doing about it? Do you have any empathy? Are you person reading this? And then we feel good saying, okay, focusing on people, but because these big concepts are just too hard to explain, maybe, or something. And I think maybe that's why religion is so successful. It's kind of like similarities with religion. Hello.
We've got some excited new people who can come and join us, because we've got Ellen here, who's a PhD in Wales and climate change, double whammy. We've got Margot over here. We've got Abby over here. We've got
Mikey.
We've got
Stephanie.
Amy, fantastic. We've got also maybe some other people who are going to come and grab a seat, come in and get involved in Talkaoke, guys. this is a pop-up talk show, guys. You guys are all here to be involved. Come and take a seat. We've been talking about whales. We've been talking about climate change. We're talking about whether Blue Planet is fake news. But I can't decide what we're going to talk about today, guys. Only you can. So I don't know. Has anyone got any ideas? Maybe we've got a few more people who want to join the table. I'm just going to do one more round of names, just because we've got lots of lovely, shiny new faces who are going to come and join us. Just, can you tell us your name?
Yeah, it's Emily.
Emily.
Megan.
Megan.
Abby.
Abby. We've got some people over here who might want to come and join. Grab a seat. You're all welcome.
Maddie.
Maddie.
Stephanie.
Stephanie.
Amy.
Amy.
Ellen.
Ellen.
Nicholas.
Nicholas.
Alex.
Alex.
I'm Margot.
Fantastic. All right, everybody. What are we going to talk about? What have been people thinking about today? Are you thinking about women in science? Are you thinking about climate change? Are we thinking about beer?
Yeah, where can you get one?
Where can you get one? Can anyone help them out here? I don't actually know.
That way. Along there, past the Heinz Hall and that way. It's called the T-Rex Grill, I've heard.
Should we be drinking beer? I've been heard today that coffee is supposed to be not very good for the climate, so I'm not supposed to be having coffee anymore.
I'd like to just say something about coronavirus.
The unsaid one.
It's like equally as bad as mentioning Brexit, but no, but it's just I keep getting emails from all sorts of sources about be careful when you sneeze, don't share your beer and shit like that. And then there's more people on the tube wearing the masks. I'm like, you look futuristic and cool, but fuck, you know, it's just a bit scary because I wanted to share my beer with you, but like I just feel like really nervous about it.
About sharing the beer.
I think it just kills the human connections. Like, no, don't talk to people. You know, we're really putting ourselves out on the line here. I feel.
Do you think it's more of like a media hype? So, you know, bad news is good news for the media essentially, more than anything else?
Coronavirus, is it hype?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think it's just a way to separate people again, and it causes a lot of discrimination as well. Like I've seen, like in the news, like Chinese people coughing, and then you know, it's like it's really bad. Like I've read a lot of stories about, you know, people getting, you know, sort of isolated. Yeah, it's sad actually. Yeah. I read a lot of news articles where the people getting isolated because, you know, everyone thinks they're contaminated, you know. So, yeah, I agree. It's a media hype, totally. Yeah.
No, because I need to share something with you because I'm very proud of it. Oh, I need to just find it first. I bought this fidget toy, right, from China, and it arrived yesterday. I can actually pass it around. It's really good, but yeah, I'm just like a little bit concerned. Do you want to have a look? It's just a fidget toy. It's like something like when you think is a very. But anyway, it just arrived when I ordered it, because you know how you order things on eBay, and it's like, oh yeah, great. Oh, it's gonna be with you in 4 years because it's coming from China. So that was one of them. When I ordered it, there was no coronavirus kicking about, and I'm just a bit like.
Are Margot's fears justified? Like, what do you guys think? Has it affected you guys similarly in what you've been shopping or talking to?
I was meant to go to Korea in 2 weeks.
And what's happening?
So I talked to the health and safety person at work, and they were like, "Yeah, fuck it, go." Like, he was like, "More people die in car accidents." He was like, more people die in car accidents in China in 6 hours than have ever died from coronavirus in this entire period. And it's basically like the influenza. And I was like, okay, cool, we can still go, this is chill. And then, so I was supposed to be meeting my best friend and my sister, who were flying from New Zealand to Korea. And then their flights just got cancelled. So I'm like, I'm cancelling the trip now.
Okay, so there's quite a lot of things there. So, but you're more likely to die from a car accident than coronavirus. So should we be more worried about cars instead? Is that what the moral of the story is? Or should you go anyway, Mikey?
I mean, I think it's going to get to a point where the damage of cancelling everything is going to be more deadly than the damage of actually preventing people from getting the virus. So there'll be a balance. I mean, right now it's good, I think, to prevent people from getting the virus because we're still learning about it and we're still trying to develop our immunity. But at some point, you're just going to have to let it go and carry on with business as usual.
Business as usual, that's what we should be thinking about.
Can I be really controversial and say that there have been some like benefits of coronavirus? And I know it's very controversial, but this includes China's carbon footprint decreasing by a quarter because of travel and people having to, and obviously it's not a good thing that people have to stay in their cities, but it has really affected their carbon footprint and also the wildlife trade there. People are saying, obviously there's a link between wildlife and this zoonotic disease jumping from humans to animals to humans, and it's had a huge effect on this really detrimental trade that happens in China with like pangolins, and we see a lot about like tigers, elephants, ivory. So there's some of the like positives that have come out of us all having like this global conversation. Obviously, a disease is not a good thing, but there are like effects of human problems that humans are causing.
Okay, so then maybe that we've got some benefits by this big virus that actually we're maybe taking stock. There are new benefits as well. I'm going to do like a quick round of names just because we've got some new faces.
Mikey.
Megan.
Emily.
Margot.
Alex.
Nicholas.
Ellen.
Amy. Steph.
Bronte.
Maddie.
Excellent, guys. So we've been talking about wildlife. I had a point over here somewhere. Did someone no, I've lost it. We had unfound benefits of coronavirus. We've got Mikey. You want to say something?
Well, someone was saying yesterday that it's good because the population will go down as well, and that will mean less resources getting consumed, less plastic, less carbon, less everything.
So it's one way of thinking about it. Alex, you've got a point, and there was a point over here as well.
Apparently it's way not deadly enough to be like really having any chance of decreasing the population. But
Oh, okay. So maybe it's not deadly enough. Maybe do we think this is a good thing? Like, do we want to increase the deadliness of it?
Oh, I mean, I'm a teacher and everyone's talking about it all the time about, are we going to get some time off? But, I don't know really. Well, I suppose we can laugh and joke and have this conversation, but maybe in 2 weeks' time we'll all be like, oops.
Well, we're all sort of stuck inside, getting a little bit bored.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, maybe do museum staff, have you guys been affected by the coronavirus? I know you're at work, but can you give us any opinions? We've just been talking about how everyone's being affected in different ways.
No, not yet. Not really.
Not yet?
We haven't been affected, but there's obviously the chance that there will be problems.
We've got, I'm going to pause you there because we've got a couple of people who are off. You are going to go and visit the rest of Natural History Museum late. Before you go. Oh, you're going to come back? Even better.
maybe.
Bring several. Had any final thoughts before you return?
That's I don't know. Don't know. No final thoughts.
No final thoughts.
Question for the table.
I was going to say question for the table, new topic for the table.
Nuclear energy.
Nuclear energy, fantastic. We've got nuclear energy. Are we going to take it? I actually don't know where the beers are, I'm afraid. So
That way and go left.
there we go.
Too. Sorry, but I just want to say one thing about this. And this museum is incredible because it houses one of the rarest archaeology finds, I think, in the world. And it's just right over there, and everyone walks past it, and no one really knows what it is. It's called the Siberian unicorn. It's only one of it ever found in Kazakhstan, and you just walk straight past it, and it doesn't even say much about it, but 2.5 million years old. It looks like a rhinoceros, and there's only one ever been found. And I think everyone should just pay attention to that, and then probably need to put a bit more information about it because I just love archaeology. I'm a huge biologist, so. Just like if you ever were walking in the mammal section, it's got this massive horn. It's amazing.
Do they think it was an actual unicorn?
Well, it's just got one massive horn. It actually looked like a rhinoceros, and so they found it in Kazakhstan, and it actually talks a lot more about that there. But that's around the Siberian era that it was found, and it doesn't really say like they should do a model of it. I think would be amazing with all the fur on it and everything. So anyway, that's why I came here to see it. That's why I came to the museum. Yeah.
So do they know what this animal looked like completely? Because I've been to Crystal Park recently, and these animals, dinosaurs, they're slightly different to what then they turned out to be. So do we know what this?
Yeah, so they've got a small model of it, and it looks sort of like a hairy rhinoceros. Yeah, so it's just only small, but yeah, you can see it. It's just over there. If you get a chance to have a look at it, it's the Siberian unicorn. Yeah.
Sergi or
yeah,
something.
yeah, Gary. Yeah. I mean, it's and this is the only place that has it, and they moved it here. So yeah, it's
Fantastic.
I don't know. I was just really excited today to see it. So yeah.
I think that's a great final thought and a great final tip for us that we can take on at some point. We've got a final thought from the teacher who just wants some time off.
If you're going to see Gary the Siberian unicorn, go and see the tapirs as well, because they're very cute.
Tapirs. Okay, fantastic.
Gary.
Thank you very much, guys. So we've got some animals on the table. We've got some Natural History Museum staff who maybe want to have a go and sit down and.
So we'll be wandering around.
Okay, you're sort of making sure that we're safe, protecting us. Thank you very much. So we've got tapirs, we've got
when we do Talkaoke with the younger crowd, there is a debate about whether unicorns exist, and they normally get shut down by the adults saying no, the unicorns are just an imaginary thing, but obviously they're not. They're real.
There's I'm guessing Gary the Siberian unicorn is probably one of the things that people. But there's a thought that people used to see narwhals, the like whales with the big tusk, and they kind of got the myth of if unicorns aren't real, that's what they think unicorns are. But on that note of like looking at really cool stuff in the museum, if you get a chance, there's a narwhal skull in the mammal hall, and it actually has 2 tusks, and that's really you guys, and that's really rare. But that's like your ultimate unicorn with 2. It's a narwhal. So it looks like a kind of dolphin with a long tusk sticking out of his top lip.
Is it just like a mutation if it has 2 tusks? Or?
Yeah, it's very rare actually. Yeah, it's a mutation, and it's just like the tusk is actually the tooth, like the top tooth, that comes out of the top lip. But yeah, having 2 unicorn tusks is very rare. But it's very cool if you get a chance to look at it.
When you said, what did you say, narwhal? Narwhal, I immediately thought of the guy who was protecting people on London Bridge with a narwhal tusk.
Oh, yes.
And it just made me realise how precious this thing is. That's all I wanted to say.
Yeah. What other kind of
weapon as well? I suppose.
Very strange weapon to use. Well, I mean, what other kind of animals could we use as weapons? I've just got caught up on my own mic lead. Hamsters. Okay, use hamsters as weapons. Why hamsters particularly? Oh God. Okay, I've got a thought over here.
Because they did. I don't know if they still do. I think they probably do. But you'll know this. Do they? Because they use dolphins as kind of soldiers in the U.S. Navy to plant mines on boats or to find mines. So dolphins are actually there's actually trained dolphins that go and do military work.
Wow.
Is that right? Should they be using narwhals instead? I don't know.
I guess it's.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is there any kind of ethical dimension to using a dolphin as
You can't use a dolphin to do dangerous work. That's no.
What if they get a snack at the end of it?
That's not worth it. They're not consenting to dangerous work. They don't know the danger
Because
they're getting themselves into.
It's more the problem of consent that's the issue.
Yes.
We haven't got. Okay. Can animals give consent? Or would you use an animal as? We've got some people over here. They're like, oh, I'm so curious. I just want to have a chance. Come and sit down. Oh, you're at the storytellers. But you come back after the storytellers. Fantastic. There we go. We locked you in. I've written it down in my diary.
Well, no. Oh, no. See, now we get into this debate of like veganism and all that shit. It's a loaded topic. Like, do we want to unpack it?
I don't know. Well, we have what a good opportunity we might have at the Talkaoke today, but we might not want to talk about animals and whether they can give consent. I mean, is there anyone got like an intuition?
Do you know, it just made me think because at first I thought it was a funny thing to consider, but actually, when I had a pet dog and if I wanted it to do something, it doesn't matter how complex or simple it was, I could tell that when he was up for stuff and when he clearly wasn't. Yeah. So I think, unless the animal is but even if the animal is being excited about being brought into a slaughterhouse, maybe it's because you just trained him wrong, So what animal consent would look like? But I think you can feel where there is where another being is up for something or not up for something.
Your dog will want to go for a walk if it wants to go for a walk. If it doesn't want to walk, it'll just like lie down and not budge.
But I suppose you also have to keep in mind that dogs have been domesticated for years, and now we're sort of, I don't know, like you can't really domesticate like dolphins and whales. Like in a way, I suppose we've tried with, aquariums and all that kind of stuff, and we know that it doesn't work. Like if you watch documentaries like Blackfish, and you just know it doesn't work. So we really don't think we should keep continuing with that. But yeah.
Fantastic. Come on, guys. We've been talking a bit about animals, dolphins planting bombs on ships. We're talking about animal consent. We've got Mike over here.
Well, there was a famous story about a dolphin, or maybe a group of dolphins even, that lived in a real house that was semi-submerged. And it got very unethical in the end, although some might say the dolphin did consent, but the dolphin, wanted to move the sort of sense of domestication one step further, and was actually sort of getting his kicks from the human being. I mean, I don't know, I'm not a dolphin expert, so I can't tell you any more than that about that. But what?
Okay, so we've got domesticated dolphins, we've got LSD experiments, we've got some new people on the table as well. So before we start any of those ideas, I'm just going to start with, come on guys, just grab a seat. We've got two over here. I'm just going to start with a quick round of names, starting over here.
I'm Heather.
Heather.
Bronte.
Maddie.
Mikey?
I'm Megan, but I've got a blast.
That's right, Megan. Before you go, do you have a... you have brought up...
I'm going to Korean barbecue, actually. I'm still going to Korea somehow, but...
So before you leave us, have you got a final thought for the table? Maybe a topic that we can talk about with all these lovely people on the table here.
What a
dolphin impression, yeah.
Yeah.
Were you the dolphin, the second dolphin?
Are we the
dweller?
dolphins? Something to debate. Whether governments are doing enough, or what are governments doing, as we've seen right now with our global pandemic of COVID-19. What are their responses?
Yeah. What are governments doing? Are they doing enough? We've got a big juicy topic on the table to get us started. Thank you very much. We've got anyone want to kick off? Oh no, I didn't even finish my names. There we go. I need a name over here. Emily. Margot.
Matthew.
Harriet.
Ellen.
Anton.
Oh gosh, Anton, you've made the mic go crazy.
Victor.
And there we go. I'm just gonna.
Turn down number one.
Turn down number one. I think we just got very bassy on the table. There we go. Oh. Is that working? Hello. Well, guys, before we have our technical issues, have we? Yeah, someone's just brought their phone in. They're just whacking up our table. What are we going to talk about, guys? Do we want to talk about COVID-19? Do we want to talk about dolphin sex? I don't know. Yeah, exactly. It's like disagreeing with us. Where are we going to take it, guys? Hello guys, come and just grab a seat over here. We've got a couple this side. It's Talkaoke. It is the table of chat. It's a pop-up talk show. You guys are our guests. Come on, sit down, welcome. What? You didn't know what it was? And then what made you come and seek it out?
We got taken by one of the volunteers.
What are your thoughts so far about any of the topics we've talked about very briefly?
Dolphins are surprisingly evil.
Well, I mean, I'm surprised that I'm coming up with all the dolphin facts when we've got somebody that's a researcher in cetaceans. Is that how you say it? Cetaceans? But apparently they do this mirror test, and only a few species of animals can recognize themselves in the mirror when they look at a mirror. But when they did it to dolphins, like literally within a minute, they were having sex in front of the mirror. So I think that means dolphins are actually cleverer than human beings. They think faster. They learn faster.
I reckon we definitely...
When's the first time you looked in the mirror?
Yeah, but I haven't had the opportunity to do it at the same time that I would then immediately.
Okay, so we've got many disagreements. We've got a camp over here with like yes, we'd have sex above the mirror like dolphins. Because some other people are like, the dolphins love having sex more than us, they're more intelligent. Have we got any opinions over here? Can we grab a seat as well? Where are we going to take this, guys? Dolphin sex, tell us more.
Dolphin sex. Yeah, there was an interesting article out actually this week on dolphin vaginas and how they're so incredibly convoluted, like they're really wobbly and they're all over the place. And scientists are like, why are they so all over the place? But apparently there's this really clever mechanism where they can like close the vagina and stop salt water getting in, because salt water can kill sperm really quickly. So yeah, they're not only clever up here, they're clever down there as well.
How convoluted and labyrinthine are they compared to duck vaginas? Because they got the whole corkscrew thing going on. Pretty fancy.
I think even fancier than duck vaginas. Yeah, dolphins. It's a bold claim. But I think dolphins have it.
So we're talking about dolphin anatomy, guys. If you want to come and join, just come and stand around. I'm just going to leave it at that. Dolphin anatomy. Maybe we want to redesign our own anatomy. I don't know. Is anyone taken by a curvy vagina?
Maybe not, but I think redesigning human anatomy would be good. Like having a pouch instead of having to grow a baby and have it in the normal way. Have it give birth to it when it's like the size of a baked bean. Sounds good.
Fantastic. Okay, we've got some thoughts from Mike over here. Someone who actually can't give birth.
Yeah, not yet anyway, but let's see what science can do. But when it comes, I read a really interesting article about delayed pregnancy. So certain animals, bears and a lot of seals and sea lions and stuff like that, if they get pregnant, they can delay their gestation. They can just keep it. Wouldn't that be handy? It's like, I'll get pregnant, but I'm just going to have my baby 5 years, 10 years time, whenever it suits. That's what certain animals do. I mean, that would be a good thing to adopt. Yeah, well, it would be. It'd be like, I'm pregnant, but I'm going to have your baby in 2032. You'll be like, what?
Okay, what do you think? Reorganising pregnancy, a longer pregnancy.
So I was going to pick up on what you said about if medicine could allow everyone to give birth. Would that be something that people like? Is that like a good thing? Are there any ethical issues? That's literally something that's popped to my head. But from the outset, I'm like, oh, maybe that would be quite good for equality for all genders.
Everyone wants to give birth. Thoughts here and then here.
Well, bouncing off the idea of pouches, I mean, having males have pouches as well and carry the babies like seahorses could be a good step towards equality.
Okay, so we want to go down the seahorse model over here.
I'll be honest, I think the only reason giving birth and pregnancy works is because you can't palm it off onto someone else. Let's be honest, not very pleasant. Get fat and heavy, can't drink, can't smoke, and obviously the actual giving birth process.
Some people love it. Have we got any thoughts over here about? You found it quite funny. Do you think that you like the idea of pregnancy?
I think it's mostly like, oh, you can't drink for 9 months. That's terrible. That's pretty good.
Yeah, it's not a motivating factor.
Well, then would you get thinking things the other way around? Would you just wham bam, thank you, mister, and then just would you prefer just to kind of do the act and then leave and then let the man take? Would that be more desirable? I mean, from my perspective, I would like to actually gestate a baby. I would love that. Yeah, I would love to do it. I might have a cesarean, but I would. There's something I would. I think you really miss out on as a man. So I would definitely go that way round rather than the other way round.
I would willingly not ever get pregnant. It just, for me, it's never been. I just don't ever want my own children. So if I was in a relationship and he wanted a kid, then yeah, he can. If he can have the pregnancy, he can go for it.
So it's more the. I'm just going to turn around quickly. It's more the gestating than the caring. More than
it's a little bit of both. But I would never have a child by myself. Especially not now. Definitely not responsible enough for that now. But yeah, I mean, I think that would be a conversation with whoever I'd be with at the time. But yeah, the whole gestational period and all that kind of stuff, absolutely not for me.
Okay, so some people are very anti-gestation. Some people
just on the baby topic, another, I like bringing controversial, like, what do people think to, like, designer babies, where you can, like, gene edit? You could say it was like, I want my baby to have blue eyes and be 6 foot tall and blonde, or, I mean, I guess that's one extreme. The other is, like, for medical reasons, like, you can gene edit out diseases and things like that. Yeah.
Yes, and in a way, no. I think no to like genetically designing your child to have certain aspects, so like, you know, red hair, blue eyes, that kind of thing, pale skin, tan, whatever, tall, short, X, Y, and Z. But I don't know, I guess for some of the more debilitating sort of disease, so we have family friends in Japan where my parents were living there, and I can't remember what it was now, but their child, and it wasn't caught on any of the ultrascans or anything like that, but their child was born blind, only half of the brain, completely disabled, all that kind of stuff, and it was absolutely devastating, and their child would only live to, I think the max age or something like that was about 15 years old, but constantly they would constantly need care. They would never be able to learn how to read or write or speak or anything like that. So I think if they could genetically edit that one gene that they passed on to their kid, then yes. But then I guess you also have all the disabled people who say, well, no, but that is who I am, and that kind of stuff. So I think it would sort of, in a way, have to be a parent's choice, but maybe for the more extreme cases, maybe.
Do we trust people to make those choices? Do we agree that we think that this is a good use of genetic engineering?
On the genetic engineering, I just mean, why wouldn't you? For the advancement of the species, we're destroying our planet so quickly, we need to evolve to deal with it, so why wouldn't you then use that to evolve the species to deal with the show that we're leaving our planet in?
It's a great idea.
And not what's solution to climate change, we just engineer ourselves, make ourselves better.
Oh, that was just my point, yeah.
Okay.
There's a scientist in Germany who somehow gets funding to make weird calculations, and they said like if everyone was 30 centimeters shorter, we'd use like a third less energy. So making everyone like this tall, kind of solve a lot of problems.
So short people are actually better for the environment than tall people.
That's why I'm arguing this.
Got any thoughts over here? Maybe talking to a tall person that actually
Sure.
you put a lot of burden on the environment?
Well, I do now. In terms of genetic editing, I think equality of access would be something I'd be quite concerned about. And there's enough inequality as there is anywhere. If it's particularly expensive, I think genetic inequality would be particularly weird to see in society. Yeah.
I said it'd be like Gattaca. There's basically like everybody has a clone that's like they're like genetically worse off version, and they're like the second-class citizens stuff.
Like harvest them for organs or something. Yeah, and they like make the women have their children.
That's Never Let Me Go, where they harvest them for organs, but similar sort of a dystopian idea. Gattaca's the one where, like, people that are genetically edited are the first-class citizens, and what they call the child of love are the second-class citizens, and then they're denied access to all the best jobs, such as space rocket pilot. Because the guy wants to become a space rocket pilot, but he's a child of love, so he can't do it. But anyway, that was not the point. We're actually evolving, and we actually are, in a way, genetically engineering ourselves, because we're becoming more and more docile and social as we live in a more social space. And so we are actually evolving still into something that's more, in a way, more compassionate. So if we can do that a bit faster, maybe we would start to solve some of these big problems.
So Mikey thinks we're evolving into more passionate, compassionate people. We're becoming more sociable. Do we agree with that?
I think I'm going to throw out another idea where at a certain age we just all combust, and we know that age. And so it's actually the opposite of idea of what's happening, which is that instead of us living longer, which is what's happening, more people are living over the age of 100. Instead of that, we all combust at 60, and we all know that. So we live our life to the fullest, and at 60 we know it ends, and on our 60th birthday we go hard, and then we disappear. And it's just environmentally friendly that way, because we're not having as many people over a certain age that can't work and take up space.
So we've got maybe the
ageism is all, but I know it's a bit ageism, I'm so sorry, but yeah, it's just a concept.
So we're like sort of redesigning human life. We could all become a little bit shorter, and then we use less resources. Maybe we could all combust at 60. Guys, if you want to come around the table as well, come and join in. Where are we going to take this, guys?
I would rather be shorter than self-combust at 60. So if it was a choice of like being bigger and living faster, I'd say live small, die old would be my thing. Let's get a final thought from these guys.
Well, I'm behind that because I've been telling my parents for ages that at 60 I'm taking them to Sweden. To Switzerland, sorry, to Dignitas. But yeah, no, I think why not? Why not? Like the Justin Timberlake film Time. It's like that, isn't it? You run out of time and that's it. Why not? Maybe it'd make you use it better. If you don't know that, you know when it ends. One of the things that people do in life is carry on. They think they go for endless time. You might use it better. That would be my thought. And now I get more.
Any more final thoughts over here?
I'm a fan of the pouches.
We've been talking about pouches. Instead of being pregnant, then we just have like a little pouch, and then we take out a little tiny human, like a little bean. We've been talking about combusting at 60 to end our lives, being shorter, and all of this is going to save the environment. I think that's what we've solved so far. But where are we going to take it now, guys? What do you reckon?
I had two thoughts, which is 60 is quite young. But maybe there'd have to be some sort of process involved where you could as we're evolving and modern medicine is making us healthy, maybe you could reassess the combustion date each time. But also maybe it's maybe at some age when you're considered, maybe at 30, maybe you could make the decision about when you wanted whether you were to combust or not, and you had to take that. I don't know. I feel like maybe there should be some process involved.
But then no one would combust. It's got to be mandatory, right? Otherwise, everyone's going to be like, no, I'll waive my combustion. Everyone else can do it.
So people are going to choose combust, maybe they're not. I'm going to come to Mikey, but before that, I have no idea who you are. I've forgotten all your names, so I'm just going to go around the table for a quick round of names.
Ellen.
Harriet.
Matthew.
Casey.
Emily.
Maddie.
Mikey.
Stephanie.
Emma.
Bronte.
Heather.
Victor.
Okay, that's quite imaginative, I'll give you that.
Anton. Anton.
Ellen. Fantastic, guys. Okay, guys, so we've now know each other. Mikey had a point about maybe combusting at the age of 60, maybe a little bit older.
That's my point. But I think it was that maybe instead of just combusting, you could have a review session where you have at work, where they review you, and if you have done well, then you get to live a bit longer. So you get an extra 5-year extension or something like that.
Okay, before you go, Anton, Victor, and Heather, have you got any final thoughts for us? Maybe you want to throw a topic out to the table. Maybe you just want to recap some of the ideas that we were talking about.
I think you should just go see the mammal hall. It's pretty good.
Should we go see the mammal hall? Okay, I like that. A good top tip for the evening.
I'm really bad at this.
You study biology.
Let's just all
Yeah, but that doesn't mean I just have an idea of a topic to talk about. I don't know. Genetic engineering. I know. All full idea I keep having. How about eating the old people?
Okay.
There you go. Move from there.
One final thought.
Should everything be put to public referenda?
Maybe that's quite a good one to combine. Guys, if you want to come and join the table of chat, we've got some free seats over here. Come and tell us your names, guys.
I'm Sarah.
Sarah.
I'm Lizzie.
Lizzie, fantastic. Sarah and Lizzie, we've been talking about we've been talking about whether we should eat people when they've got too old. Should everything be decided by public referendum?
Another way to analyze the age of combustion might be that at 60 we analyze whether you are sustainable or not wasting the environment essentially in the way you're living your life. And so if you have a very sustainable lifestyle, then maybe you can live till 70. Otherwise you combust for being a waste.
An extra 10 years.
Okay, so there's a family like
mean, maybe it shouldn't be an age limit. It should be a carbon footprint. Once you've spent your carbon footprint, that's it. So if everyone gets a certain amount of carbon they can use, and then at the end of that, game over. Except you wouldn't want to combust that person. You want to find some other greener way to actually dispose of them. Maybe eat them would be right. Yeah.
A carbon footprint limit, but with like a really stressful endpoint. You were nodding a little bit. Have you got any thoughts about it? Do you agree with this? Do you think, no, we need to save the people?
No, I think it's a great idea. I think 100%, yes, give everybody a limit on what exactly their carbon footprint can be, and once you've elapsed your limit, then you gotta go.
This sounds a bit like an episode of Black Mirror, I think it was, where people were like judged on their social interactions and I think like how kind they were and given like a point system. Maybe it'll expand not just from having your carbon footprint, but from your like how kind you are and how you care for other people and the planet as well.
I was also going to say it sounds like a start of a Cli-Fi novel, but a great Cli-Fi novel.
What's a Cli-Fi novel?
It's climate science fiction. It's a new genre. But kind of picking up about the point you were saying, I think you need to think about how that would fit with lots of different lifestyles. For example, like maybe you're someone who might be disabled and needs to take more like transport or something, you're obviously going to have a higher carbon footprint. Or you could be like, a world-leading politician. I think we probably, maybe it's a good reason that maybe politicians shouldn't travel as much, but we probably always think that, especially if you're working international affairs, maybe you do more travel. Or for example, like armies, like it's a very utopian idea, like maybe we wouldn't have any wars, but maybe we'd still have like, we'd need to have an army and they might travel more, so I don't know, it might need to be adjusted.
Purge. Has anyone seen that one? So like maybe not, but yeah, like I've only just, so it's a movie and now a Netflix TV show, I think, or Amazon or something like that, which I've only just started watching, but basically there's like, it's set in America, where everything is, but it's basically like one day of the year, everything's legal. So like, whatever you want to do, it's completely legal. You will not be prosecuted for it. Like a buzzer sounds, and you've got maybe it's like 12 hours, maybe it's 24 hours. I'm not sure. To do whatever you want. So like people like this. I've only started watching like the first episode, but this one lady wants her boss to die so that she can go up the corporate ladder. So like, she's hired an assassin, but. I mean, I would imagine that would bring the population down to size a bit if you could.
Purge day.
Yeah, like have a purge day.
Okay, so we've got like the climate seems to be a big issue. We've got maybe the purge. We've maybe got a carbon budget where you are purged afterwards. Are there any other solutions? Are these the only ones?
I genuinely don't know what I've joined. This is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. No, sorry, I'm still blown away by the whole. Once you've used up your climate or your carbon footprint, you just die. That's crazy.
I mean, I think apparently one of the worst things you can do for the climate or for the environment is to have children. So what about putting a cap on how many children people can have?
Okay, so in China though, they did the one-child policy, and that did not go very well at all. Yeah, no, that was it.
I mean, has anyone got any ideas about how to save the planet that don't come from a dystopian sci-fi film? 'Cause it seems like everyone's ideas are just straight out of. I mean, I've heard about 6 in the last 6 minutes.
So I think the fastest fall in the total fertility rate of any country was in Iran in the 1970s, where they had sort of like mandated sex education programs and also like state-provided contraception. So I think, perhaps in some parts of the world which currently have a very high total fertility rate, like I think Niger's got a TFR of like 8, like sex education programs, provided contraception, and maybe we then move into this sort of long-awaited second demographic transition where we start having TFR below 2.4. And
that's how many babies you're having?
So TFR is how many babies a woman has during sort of the fertile period of her life, and once you drop below 2.4, you have a stable population, and it starts to go down.
Okay, so what do we think? That was a very well-researched answer again. So we should just be giving out more, instead of banning people having children, we should just give out more condoms.
Is that a solution? Sort of, I don't know, a little bit with that and some other things. Doesn't it all just at the end of the day come down to a better level of education just in general? Like, so sort of going back to coronavirus, more education on how viruses actually work and spread with contraception and sex and children and all that kind of stuff. More education on how that's going to impact your life, as well as how it all works and why contraception could be a good thing, why it's like, IVF. I'm going to jump to Mikey and then go back to Matt.
I mean, I would say education, yes, but I think people know how babies are made and all this stuff, but I think the real answer is about educating women globally so that they have careers and people like you are not interested in having children because you're more interested in having careers and then you have your children in your 30s if you just can sneak in one maybe at the end of the 30s.
Not the only reason.
It's, I mean, where you've got educated women, you've got a lower birth rate.
Do we agree on the table? Do we disagree? Or
Well, so from the same bit of thing where I got the TFR stuff in Niger, there was an article comparing Madhya and Uttar Pradesh, where one had a much higher rate of education for women and did have a lower total fertility rate after education was brought in. But the second thing was also that it depends on the shape of your economy, right? So if you've got a very agricultural or transient population, they're more likely to have large numbers of children because that's seen as part of their economic wealth. They will work on your farm, they will do housework, etc. If that's not how people are making their wealth, if they're doing it through manufacturing or tertiary services, you don't need as many kids.
Okay, so children are just an asset that we need to use. Did you have a point that you wanted to?
It's just more a social construct that we all need to reimagine. So, I mean, yes, women are holding the babies, but men are the ones who want to create their own beast that follows their name onwards. Do you know what I mean? So this instinct, natural feeling of wanting to mate and produce is all within us in an animalistic way, and almost re-changing that, even if it's like if we go medically, changing our hormonal feelings about that animalistic need to reproduce, essentially.
I think we'll be all worse off if we live in a society of only children, because only children are very selfish. Being an only child. I'm a middle child, and I'm very good at compromise and understanding other people's needs. And I think sometimes, if we live in a society of only children, we would not be better off.
Okay, so that's only children. I'm going to go over here to Harriet, then I've got Mikey. Anyone else want to jump in?
I just want to, I mean, this is a much more interesting conversation, but I just wanted to add one nuance about the education and women having less children. I think it's not necessarily that more educated women don't want children. I think it's more the fact that when you have educated women, you have more choices for women, and you can still be a highly educated woman, be a top CEO, and have a five-a-side football team as a family, but that you are given more opportunity to have that choice. I just thought that was a nuance I wanted to add.
I just want to go on the only child thing because I think that's a consequence of how we raise our children in this very nuclear family. But I think if we're going to have this model of less children, then we have to raise them a bit more community-based so they don't have this problem.
Okay, so maybe the problem isn't only children, it's just that we sort of bring them up in a very isolated manner. We should be bringing up only children in a different way, or all children in a different way. We've got...
Why don't we just give tax breaks to people for every year that they don't have a kid, if they don't reproduce? It gets bigger and bigger every year. So then if you are in a really good position, if you're so dedicated to having a family, but you would rather get rid of that tax break, then that's great. Then you're probably ready to be a parent. And if not, then that's fine. Then you keep making some money. You're earning some money. You're doing good for yourself. You're doing good for the environment.
I genuinely love that idea. Actually, I genuinely love that idea. Yeah.
In the mix.
Okay, guys. So we've got maybe a new utopia. We're just going to give people a tax break. We've got some new people on the table, possibly as well. They might come and join us. They might be a bit too busy. They're a bit too busy, but they'll come back later, so it's all right. Where are we going to take this, guys? We're going we talked about tax breaks, we talked about babies. What do we want to make ourselves in a different image?
Well, is population such a big deal anyway in terms of what this planet can support? Are there too? Because we're just assuming there are all too many of us, and that we've got to stop reproducing. But is that really the case, or is it just that we've got this very extravagant lifestyle where we produce too much carbon?
I think it's more the latter. Like, I mean, there are loads of us, and there's like 7 billion, I think, now. But I read a couple of things that said if we all adopted a vegetarian or vegan lifestyle, there's like certainly more than enough food for people everywhere. Obviously, infrastructure is a problem to distribute that food, but there's enough food. Like, our planet produces enough food for everyone to be able to survive in like a healthy and comfortable way.
Think?
Tax breaks for vegetarians. That's what I would like to see. Not only not having children, but because I'm a vegetarian, but I find it very frustrating that the vegan sausages are the same price as the real sausages. They should be a lot cheaper because they're just made in they're made in a factory. They should be a lot cheaper.
I read recently that actually vegetarian diets aren't that much greater for the environment just because of the amount of processing that it takes to make all of these like vegetarian substitutes.
Okay,
I'm a vegetarian myself, so I'm totally for it. But
so maybe, and vegan substitutes as well, presumably. Yeah. So what do we think? Are we being bad vegetarians?
We should all live under the ocean, like in the water, under the sea, or on the water, so that we can use all the land for just producing great produce. I'm throwing a really random idea out there, just for fun.
So our solution is, but then you've got problems of like sound pollution for the animals and marine life, and that's already a massive impact on a lot of marine animals that use echolocation, and fish can't find their way back to the reefs and that kind of stuff. So. Yeah.
So we want to live on platforms in the sea, but maybe that's also got some bad issues.
Also, if your plot of land that you're having to farm is in like central China, you've got a really long commute.
So, is it sustainable? Maybe you sort of have to travel a lot. So we've got, but I don't know, I quite like the idea of living on the water. Like, what? Are people not taken by this idea?
I mean, I think humans are naturally attracted to water, aren't they? And that I don't know, because I'm not a evolutionary biologist, but is it because we had an aquatic stage in our past and we like being by the water? Like, if you've got a flat that's by the canal, it's worth more. And then what's the reason for that? Is there an evolutionary reason?
People maybe are evolutionarily drawn to water. Do you find you guys are drawn to water? do you live it? Do you seek it out?
Yes.
Tell us, why? Why do you seek it out?
Because it's fun.
Because it's fun, but why do you think it's fun? Come and join us, come and join us. Sit down for 5 minutes. We've been talking about... We're going to talk about going to live on the sea. We're going to let the land recreate itself, or we're going to become mermaids. Mermen? Was it just merpeople? Merpeople. Okay, there we go. Yeah.
I'm not sure. I mean, I like the idea of letting the land like reclaim itself, and you see really cool like artists' impressions of what happens to cities when humans don't live in them. But I just have a horrible feeling that we'd just destroy the oceans like we have the land.
Do you mind that just before you go? Because you gave us such a fantastic idea as well. I need a few final thoughts just as you guys leave. Any final thoughts about what we've talked about? New topics that you can leave us with? A question you guys can leave us with?
Thinking maybe going back to the noise pollution thing, marine one. Do we know where natural noise crosses over into more like human noise? And where does it cross over? And is there really big impact as we think it is, or maybe it's not so bad? Don't know.
Okay, brilliant.
Cetacean scientists on the table.
Scientist somewhere who can tell us about this. Any final thoughts?
If not in the sea, why not the air? Let's just go up.
Have you got a final thought as well? Gonna leave us. Thank you very much, guys. You were fantastic. Are we going to go and live in bliss instead? Maybe that's the solution.
Well, we kind of, in London anyway, because we're all building upwards, so we are going into the air, aren't we? So that's really happening. Yeah.
We did interrupt you when you were telling us those
Uh,
final thoughts.
Yeah, I was just saying, I think we would just end up destroying the oceans as much as we have. But that's a really depressing view, but unfortunately, I just think because we are kind of, we are, and like when it comes to like the noise that the lady mentioned when she was leaving, like when it, like anthropogenic noise in the ocean is a huge problem for whales. Like they communicate by singing across vast oceans, and now they're actually having to lower the tone of their voice, of their sounds, so that they can be heard over like ships and all the noise that we're making with the sonar noise. So they're having to evolve and adapt really, really quickly. And whales aren't very good at evolving and adapting really quickly. So it's just one of the many things that we're unfortunately doing to them by encroaching on their space now, as well as like land space.
Can we help them at all? Can we change the pictures of our own ships? Maybe like help get their messages across?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. But the thing is, because whales, they'll be communicating at loads of different pitches, depending on whether they're toothed whales or baleen whales. So baleen whales communicate at a really low pitch. Toothed whales, the echolocators, communicate at really high pitch. So it'd be very difficult to kind of start changing or producing sounds like sonar and ship sounds that wouldn't impact something. I think that's our problem, is we always try to, when we know we have a problem, we do sometimes try to change and adapt, but unfortunately it then becomes a problem for something else. So yeah, it's a really difficult one. It's difficult.
Okay, we've been talking about whales talking to each other across the oceans. Come and take a seat, guys. We've been talking about redesigning the human body. We've been talking about whether humans should like live on the sea or in the air. So we've had quite a few topics and conversations, but first, before we start, can I get your names?
Jasmine. Hello.
Jasmine.
Hi, I'm Peter.
Peter.
Oh, Mikey.
Maddie.
Emily.
Casey.
Matthew.
Harriet.
Ellen.
Lizzie.
Sarah.
Fantastic. This is, hello, I'm Evie, and this is Talkaoke. It's a pop-up talk show. You guys are our VIPs for tonight, and you guys are shaping the debates that we're having so far. We've talked a lot about climate change so far, and kind of how we can maybe redesign ourselves or our lives to try and help that. We've got Ellen here, who's a whale scientist, so she'll be telling us about how whales are affected by shipping. But we need some new topics for the conversation, guys. I think we need some. Do we want to talk more about whales? Do we want to talk about something entirely new?
I was going to say, like the concept of lab-grown meat. So would people still be, if you could take, what do people think about lab-grown meat and the ethics around it or not?
Okay, so lab-grown meat. We were talking about being vegetarians earlier as well. Would you eat something that was grown in a lab?
No, I'm vegetarian myself, but I don't think I don't think I would ever do that, just because it's still I would still in my mind think it's meat, even if it was lab grown. It's just like that's just me.
Yeah. Okay, so maybe lab-grown meat. Maybe it's a bit gross. Maybe we don't like it. And would you be willing to try like some meat grown in the lab? Would you be curious? Are you guys vegetarians? No. No. Okay, so you're like, would it be? What makes you worried about it?
It's just not natural, it seems.
Grab a seat. What's your name?
Miriam.
Miriam. Welcome, Miriam. This is Talkaoke. It's a table chat. We're just solving issues here. Well, problems.
I think lab-grown meat's a really interesting one, because I'm a vegetarian, but I think one of the many ethical questions that like comes to mind is probably your reasons for being vegetarian as well, or like how you feel about eating meat. So, for example, I guess I speak about myself. I really miss meat. I miss a steak and I miss bacon and everything. But I'm vegetarian for like the environment and animal welfare, blah blah blah. So I'd love to have an opportunity to like tuck into a juicy steak without without the kind of without the ethical implications so much. Yeah. I think it's your reasons.
I mean, I've been vegetarian for like 20 years, so I was extremely young when I became vegetarian. So I don't miss meat at all. But I am perfectly happy for other people. I'm happy for other people to eat meat. I'm not there for the environmental reasons. It's how I've grown up. But I would happily watch other people and it for me to be lab grown.
I mean, if the concept really took off, how does that affect like how much or how many resources need to be used to produce that one steak that was made in a lab. Maybe those resources is actually just as bad as, you know, eating beef or something like that in terms of sustainability. Like if we're producing as many steaks via lab, you probably will find it is not sustainable anyway.
On that point, so I work in a cell biology lab, and the amount of plastic that we use to grow our cells is ridiculous, and it's one of the kind of pet peeves of mine. So I think that's a really good point.
Okay, so lab grown meat is a plastics problem as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a biologist, but I'm imagining the way to do it is an economy of scale. So instead of growing like a tiny petri dish of meat, if you grew like an enormous block of meat, like the size of this museum, then surely, and you could just chop it up into, like, feed the whole country in one go. That's, I think, the way to do it.
No, I was sort of just wondering, would we be able to, like in theory, get sort of pipettes made out of medical sort of silicone and be able to disinfect them and that kind of thing? But then also, how would this lab-grown meat affect current farmers and things like that? Like, would we educate them to then go into lab-grown meat sort of areas? I guess it's sort of similar to solar power and, you know, coal and that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Does lab-grown meat put farmers out of the job? Do we need to start re-educating people? You know, is anyone thinking, no, we should stick up for eating the cows, eating the pigs? Like, actually, that's fine, and we need to continue doing that.
I disagree, because obviously America, because they've got so much cows and that, and obviously I'm sure people know that obviously when the cows, they produce a lot of methane, and we're over.
I find the debate very interesting, but yes, I mean, I think it's not a simple problem, but I think already educating people, we're consuming so many things that are not healthy for us. So if we already stop eating just sugar products, things like that, we're saving already a lot of plastic and waste. And then just eating meat from time to time, I think, yeah, we just have to, now we're just big consumers, and think about how we consume. I think it's also an important question, and in that way we can actually educate children to think about that and reflect on it.
We've really paused Jasmine, so thank you very much for that. So great final thought. It's more about consumerism itself.
I can't remember where I was off now. No worries.
American livestock farming.
A lot of like meat gets waste because it's so much produced, and then obviously over time it just kind of, yeah.
We've also got maybe some more final thoughts over on the table over here.
I feel like natural is always better. I don't like things that are so far from what it should be, and so far from what comes naturally from the earth that it can't be healthy for us in the long run.
Okay, so maybe these synthetic things they're too unhealthy for us. So there's a worry, there's some risks there.
No, my final thought is that this has just made me really want to go back into marine biology. So that's it. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We've got one more final thought over here.
If we did have pouches to produce babies or continue that growth like equally, I think that you'd find more women in power. Okay, bye.
Thank you very much, guys. That's a wonderful final thought. Out with the old, in with the new. We've got a new person on the table. Welcome. What's your name?
My name's Alison.
Alison. So Alison, we've been talking about what have we been talking about, guys?
Well, I mean, it's kind of the whole theme of it really has been about how to save the planet, really. Well, not even save the planet, save the ecosystem from increased carbon footprints. So there's been a whole number of ideas from reducing population size through all kinds of measures, dystopian and not so dystopian. Right now we're on vegetarianism. And while I've got the mic, I want to say that I've been a vegetarian for so long that I never used to think this, but now I just think it's somehow just wrong to eat a mammal that's like you. And I find it I love the taste of steak still, but I find it kind of disgusting, like I'm a murderer if I get drunk at a barbecue and have a nibble of one. But, you know, I've been doing it so long, it just seems to me so weird that you would even consider eating a fellow animal, really.
So I think, I can't remember who it was, but someone picked up on the point there, like, what about farmers, these people who have their livelihoods and their whole family's livelihoods from producing meat and selling meat. And I like understand that's really difficult. These people would have to either diversify, re-educate, or whatever. But I think we have to think about other careers or jobs in the past that have ethical issues as well that have had to stop. For example, like I don't know, fur farming. People are probably in the UK, I don't know, in Victorian times, or hopefully not now, but they produced, got a lot of money, and that's how what their livelihoods were. Or being a little bit more extreme, like child labour or slaves as well. Like people had livelihoods, and then attitude changed, and that became taboo, and these people had to diversify, re-educate themselves, and like move forward. And I think maybe it might have to be that extreme. It's a climate crisis. Like things have to change.
It's going to be a bumpy road because we've got to change drastically. Anyone agree, disagree? Any changes?
Well, I'm a reluctant vegetarian because my daughter's a vegetarian, and the deal was if she cooks, I will eat her food. But when she's out, I have bacon sandwiches. I take your point about, and I wouldn't personally want to have to kill the animal I was going to eat. But actually, I think I probably could. Do not get stranded on an Andean mountainside with me in an air crash, because I will eat you. I think we're animals the same as anyone else, and we're lucky enough not to be eaten on the whole, but I would eat you.
Do we think there's is there like a moral dimension if you're more willing to kill the animal yourself? Is that okay that you can then eat it?
Yeah, so I'm a vegetarian. I've been a vegetarian since I was 11, but my brother-in-law isn't, and he has been hunting recently with his family. And for me, that's totally fine. Like, if he's willing to shoot it and kill it himself, that's fine. I just think that there's a real disconnect between what you pick up on the supermarket, which is all packaged in plastic and plucked for you and all that, and people take their minds out of it. So, yeah.
Okay, so we're going to say, actually, we think hunting is better than maybe the current food standards we have, abattoirs. Whale hunting, maybe we're going to bring that one up.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's really interesting. I think there's a big sort of social, kind of social idea around there, and I think that would encourage less waste, because if more people were more connected to, even not necessarily hunting directly, but they knew a lot more where their food came from, eating meat might be a much more of a luxurious special thing, because you understand the importance of that that's gone into growing that animal. So I think that's quite I think that's a really interesting take on it, and I think maybe that's a lot of it is to do with our ideas about food, and how it's in this kind of consumerist way, and when people see do food waste, and I'm kind of trailing off here, but I think there's a lot of interesting things there.
So we think maybe the way that we eat meat is maybe a bit too consumerist, so maybe hunting is a bit more ethical, but I don't know, is being hunted not more quite an unpleasant way to die? Are we all thinking that's the best way to die as an animal? Would you would rather that or the abattoir? Emmett?
Yeah, I think my name is Emmett. Yeah, hello, table people. The thing about the people hunting and things, it's a bit more honest. And the thing is, I noticed that particularly in the UK, a lot of people like to eat things like sausages or burgers and things like that don't resemble a bit of an animal at all. The scary one is prawns. They're the ones that look at you from the plate. But the thing is that I don't know if it's my phone or I dropped it on the floor. The thing is that I used to be vegetarian for a long time, and I decided that it was really just about salving my conscience. It didn't seem like a coherent position. So it felt coherent to be a vegan or to eat anything. But being vegetarian, just I didn't want the guilt associated with. But what did I think happened to the male calves? What did I think happened to the male chicks? So really, it's kind of like a cop-out, trying to say, I don't want the bad, I would feel bad, but I'm still going to be part of that industry. And the thing is that now I would rather eat something either it was organic or if it was wild, like game, because at least it's had relatively its normal existence. Rather, even organic farming, the thing is that really, these ancient ancestors evolved to live in a certain way, and then just completely bred that out and made them something completely different.
We've got quite a lot of thoughts here. I kind of want to...
Well, I just wanted to...
We've got organic farming, but we've also got vegetarians. Are they as bad as meat eaters? I thought if I can just grab...
Well, no, but I just think the thing is, I just want to say one thing about vegans.
One thing about
Because by the time it goes back, it'll change on. But it's that if under capitalism now, if everyone was vegan, we would just not allow any place to be used for non-human animals. We would just, it's like the best burger I ever had was from wild buffalo from Montana. Now, buffalo is almost extinct, yeah? And the reason why they're allowed to carry on living there is because the land is so poor, you wouldn't be able to do any vegetables there or anything. But you can bet if they weren't killing a small number of buffalo, there wouldn't be allowed to be any buffalo. We would just wipe them out entirely. So really, we have to get rid of capitalism. But until we do, a small number of them will probably have to be killed and eaten as food.
It's not veganism, vegetarianism, meat eating, it's capitalism that's the problem. We've got some new people who maybe disagree or agree. Do you guys want to come and grab a seat? We maybe also have some people who are leaving as well, so they might give us some final thoughts before we go.
Are we going, or are we going?
Okay, you're not leaving, that's fine. Okay, I don't care then, don't worry. We got any thoughts? We had quite a lot of ideas there.
I want to go back to the whole hunting thing. So one thing I've noticed in doing my research is the way it's killed. So hunting, I don't know how people hunt, whether they kill it, it only gets a leg, then obviously the animal's in pain. And then slaughterhouses as well, where they, I think with cows, they get stunned to the head before they then obviously die. But then some people who are in the slaughterhouses who work there don't actually know how to do it properly because they're not trained properly. And then my thoughts are on how they're killed. Does that make a difference for you guys?
It's actually important to think about how they're killed as well. We've got a new person on the table. Can I get your name?
Of course. My name's Zoe.
Welcome, Zoe. Do you have any thoughts on what you sort of were hearing from the sidelines, Zoe? Any ideas on this?
You're discussing vegetarianism, veganism, meat eating.
Is it better to hunt an animal or kill it in an abattoir? Are vegetarians just as bad as meat eaters? Should we all be vegan, or is capitalism the problem?
Okay.
That's a little sum up. That's a little brief
Yeah. Okay. This might be repeating things. I've been through these conversations and rooms before, and some people will be very much like, okay, everyone in the world should be vegetarian or vegan, and this is the thing that we should be doing for the climate. And I think if you want to make that decision, that's really, really great. That's really positive. But someone who lives in, say, the UK, who is vegan, will probably still have a carbon footprint that is 5 times more than someone in the global south who eats meat, but their carbon footprint is like a fifth of that. So I don't think we should be therefore telling someone else what they should, in that situation, should be eating, if we're looking at it in an environmental way.
Okay, so it's also maybe the system of agriculture that's the issue as well, and our form of consumption maybe. Anyone want to jump in on that? Or does everyone agree maybe? Oh, we've maybe got some final thoughts on the table. They were undecided about these final thoughts, but now we're sure.
I was just going to throw in another topic about, it's very much in the same climate stuff, but is high density housing much more environmentally friendly, so like tower blocks, things like that?
Fantastic, so we should all be living in tower blocks. Any final thoughts over here? Matthew?
Yeah, do we have any hope for COP26, or is government action always going to be disappointing?
Can you explain what COP26 for anyone who might not know? I feel like most people do know, but tell us anyway, because I'm not sure.
So COP is Coalition of Parties, people who signed up to the Paris Agreement. They're hosting the next meeting in Glasgow at the end of the year.
It's a climate change conference.
Climate change conference, fantastic. Okay, so and you think, is it going to do anything? That's your question.
Can I just say that you can find Talkaoke with the Natural History Museum. They're subject to negotiation. They're in Glasgow. We're hoping to bring Talkaoke up and David Attenborough. So it's the dream team with Natural History Museum around the side of the table. We're not gonna let him in to the middle. No way.
Don't trust it. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much for all your ideas. Do we think these conferences actually work, or is it just an excuse for flying people in for a bit of a holiday?
Well, today the third runway at Heathrow got poo-pooed by the courts because of what the government signed up to in one of I think it was the Paris Accord, but it was one of the climate. It was found to be not tallying with its climate commitment. So it does make a difference. You might have to go through the courts to get these things to happen, but it made a difference.
made a difference, so we should be funding them, guys. Can anyone go to COP? I don't know too much about it. Like, does anyone know whether like normal members of the public can?
You can. I think, again, it depends how involved you want to be and what you can go to. You can all go, but you might not be able to get into certain talks and discussions and, network opportunities.
Yeah, I've heard about something like it's not related to climate, but it's related to stop and search, so completely different thing. But apparently, it was this young person in London who was stopped and searched, and then they didn't feel massively empowered to kind of like follow that through, and it was something else went on. It wasn't just stop and search, but anyway, it just escalated, and that young person just didn't feel empowered. They couldn't do anything about it, and the parents and the family was like, well, what's the fucking point? Police is going to search us anyway. Like, they just do whatever they want, and in the end, one of the kind of services the young person was engaging with, they said, actually no, we can report it. They reported it. British courts rejected. They didn't do anything with it. They took it to the European courts, and they were listened to. The whole thing went through, and in the end, the ruling was, that the British police didn't do the right thing, and British courts ruled in error. Like, there wasn't. Sorry, I don't have the words, but I think it does make sense to go higher. Sometimes, even if it feels like maybe it's not possible.
Do you think there are examples of real change that if people feel like they want to campaign or disagree, they can actually make a bit of difference?
I mean, one of the things we started off, like, it seems like a long time ago now, but we started off talking about this fatigue, of this campaigning fatigue, where people have been campaigning about climate change for such a long time and feeling like it's not going anywhere. But actually, these things take incredible amount of time. Like, when it comes to we touched on slavery earlier on, and that's now unacceptable. It took something like 80 years for the campaign to achieve any results in the UK. So these campaigns just take years and years and years to actually change the culture and change ways of doing things.
I suppose the problem is that in this particular case, we just don't have 80 years. We can't wait.
So do you think that means that we're maybe looking at different forms of activism? Does that mean that we need to get more people involved? What's the solution if we feel like we're running out of time? Is there one?
I've heard that apparently if everybody rallied together and went for the 1%, we'll be fine, because it really just takes them to, people who've got the capital and they've got the immediate economic gains from the climate, the irreversible climate. They're the ones who can make the difference, so we as people should go after them.
Okay, so maybe it's the 1% that we need to find.
I think it's quite difficult, because if you are really, really passionate about making a change, and say you're part of Extinction Rebellion or you're a hardcore vegan or whatever, I think there's quite a lot of bad press going around about people like this. Like, for example, Extinction Rebellion members being arrested and being extreme and coming across as these crazy people who are disrupting people going to work, blah blah blah. But that's the thing. I think unfortunately it needs to almost get a little bit extreme, because, like you say, we don't have 80 years to change. 2 degrees of warming is probably going to happen now, most likely going to happen. And unfortunately, there's a lot of, I guess it's a media problem as well. There's a lot of negative media about being vegan and being crazy with it, or being Extinction Rebellion and being crazy with it. So unfortunately, it's a media issue there as well.
Okay, so we've got the media, we've got Extinction Rebellion. Do people disagree? Do they agree?
I think while we have capitalism, we have to rely on the paramilitary ring of capitalism, which is the insurance industry. At the moment, you see all these houses that have been built on floodplains, they can't get any insurance. So instead, the taxpayers expected to pick it up. But if the insurance industry was really going to factor in the actual costs of climate change to things, people might suddenly realise how real it was, because the people who there work it out with the specialists and work out the likelihood of things happening, and these things are used to consider once in a century flood, once in a millennium. They're happening every other year. And really, if people were really able to see they cannot get insurance, like really, it should be in every. We wouldn't be able to get house insurance, wouldn't be able to get contents insurance, wouldn't be able to get car insurance, and all of a sudden, every time, because this you already see it happen in The Simpsons. Flanders wouldn't get insurance because he said it was gambling. Because he's fundamentalist Christian. But in a sense it is. But the whole point being we pool our resources, but it all relies on the actual likelihood of things being factored in properly. And maybe that could bring home to people the reality of it all. Oh, okay. And I quite like that. Insurance is the paramilitary wing of capitalism.
That's a good phrase.
I guess, like you say, it's that kind of bringing it home to people that's unfortunately almost a thing that needs to happen. Not only with the floods in the UK this year, they've been, so much worse than they normally are, but the fires in Australia, the bushfires, I think that was almost a turning point for a lot of people, seeing firsthand in a wealthy nation, this isn't a poorer country where I don't know if people care less about. Unfortunately, this is like a Western nation, like battling the loss of millions of organisms, and I think it became like a bit of a, hopefully, like something out of something so bad, like a bit of a turning point in this is actually going to be the norm, much more regular. So, yeah.
So yeah, disaster suddenly becoming the norm, and we're going to have to kind of get used to that. We're going to have to maybe help each other a little bit more, or is it sort of every country from themselves? Like how do we think that's going to go?
I think one of the problems is that it comes down to what you're prepared to do without. We can all say, oh, well, somebody should do something about this. But if I need a pint of milk at 11 o'clock at night, I will get in my car. And I'm not the only person who would do that. I feel guilty, but I still do it. And I don't want to give up my car. I don't want to give up my central heating and my television and my gas cooker and all those things. And we are going to have to face that there will be unpleasant choices, and we may have to live less comfortably. And people are just not going to want to do that unless we really give them a reason to do that and a real incentive.
Yeah, I think the reason is what we're looking for, and I think it's because it's such a complex problem that nobody really knows how to do it. So we all want to do it, but it's so complex that you don't want to give up if you don't know it's going to be worth it.
Yeah.
You don't want to give things up unless you know it's going to be worth it. I like that thought.
I think there's maybe a lot of privileged people who think everything is about sacrificing things, and it's not necessarily. And everyone should generally be able to live at a reasonable, good level. And there is enough resources in this world for everyone, and there's enough food being grown for 10 billion people. But it's the way it's being distributed and managed that is not being done correctly. So I think that's more the issues, which again comes back to sort of capitalism and people that are in power that is causing these issues. And then the kind of thing around, the sort of, do we keep things for ourselves, and do we take that, and what country's perception is on that? The kind of scary thing now is that initially they used to say that a lot of people were denying climate change, but actually now the next level is that people are recognizing that climate change is happening, and they are therefore scared, and they are hoarding things. And they are hoarding things for themselves and their own countries, and becoming protective again about, and this links to migrant justice, and they're again seeing these sort of migrants coming in, and they're saying, actually we don't want you because we don't have enough resources, and it's sort of linking those climate justice, migrant justice all together.
Fabulous. I've noticed maybe we've got a few final thoughts speaking around the table. So I'm just going to take a few final thoughts from everyone. If you're new to the table, come and grab a seat. What are you going to leave us with?
I guess thinking about the whole civil disobedience and kind of coming back to how we get people involved, it kind of going back to the theme of the night about women in science, it kind of makes me think of the actions that the suffragettes had to take to actually get their point across. At the time, they were seen as criminals and put in prison, but now we kind of revere them, so maybe we do have to take that action, and maybe we'll be well treated by history, I suppose.
Yeah. Well treated by history. Final thought over here.
So my final thought was kind of more about consumerism. So it's been kind of talked about lately that fast fashion is a huge problem in terms of waste. So maybe we should get rid of the high street as it is and just all shop in Oxfam.
Abolish the high street, solve consumerism like that. We have Ellen leaving us.
Yeah, unfortunately.
What final thought are you going to leave with?
Final thought. I guess how much impact we will have as individuals. I guess, I mean, we can, we can drive to the shop and buy a pint of milk and things like that and feel guilty about it. But at the end of the day, is it down to us or is it down to politicians? Like, for example, the Heathrow runway not being built, was that the public, or was that more of a political thing that happened?
Fantastic, thank you very much. I think we might be getting to the point, talk about resources, we might be depleting our resources.
Yeah.
We might change.
Yeah, but let me just have my final, because you're not allowed to give your opinions on the inside of the table. So I'm just gonna I just want to go to the Heathrow Airport thing. Is a lot more complicated than that, because Boris Johnson, our now Prime Minister, said he was against it, but then he suddenly had to disappear to Afghanistan when the vote came along, and so the government voted for it, but they were not allowed to do it by the courts, but from the commitment of a previous government. So make of that what you will. It's more complicated. And I think when it comes to your pint of milk, the solution to that is an electric drone coming to deliver your milk at any time of the day or night, which would, would be more convenient and less guilt. What's the word? Guilt-causing, guilt-invoking. So I think the answer is always to develop and have better technologies which are more sustainable, and those are just around the corner. We just need to encourage them and subsidise them possibly. So more money to Jeff Bezos, basically, with his. Yeah.
And on that note, I think, guys, come and grab a seat. We're going to do a really swift change of the Talkaoke host, replete our resources, and thank you very much. I think maybe we'll take a few final thoughts. Some final thoughts before you guys go.
I guess it's complex. We're all trying to fix it, but we don't know how.
Okay, so we're all trying, but it's a bit too complex, and we're not going to solve it.
We need to link up issues, so as that kind of touched on last point, migrant justice, social justice, economic justice, climate justice, all those need to be interlinked, and they are.
Fantastic, thank you very much. And final thoughts over here as well?
Well, as the oldest person around this table, I would like to apologise for my generation. I'm really sorry, but I didn't do it all myself.
Fantastic, I think that's excellent. Right, I think you can have you can share a joke, yes?
Just while someone mentioned earlier about this thing about it's a little thing in the climate summit. It says on the wall: energy independence, preserve rainforests, sustainability, green jobs, livable cities, renewables, clean water, air, healthy children, etc., etc. And someone puts their hands up and says, "What if it's a big hoax and we create a better world for nothing?"
Okay, I'm going to leave everyone to just think on that whilst I'm going to hand over the microphone to Mikey and do a swift switcheroo. Thank you very much, everyone. I've been Evie. This is Talkaoke, and it's about to resume in phase 2.
We're going to try and keep this hot. Just so stay there. We'll keep some of these subjects going and see where this leads. Big thanks to Evie.